Hi, welcome to the next video in our series, and this video is going to cover the circulatory system. So the circulatory system is the system in the body that's responsible for moving blood that's rich in nutrients and oxygen all around the body and returning it back to the heart. There are two main components of the circulatory system, or two main functions. One is to deliver oxygen and nutrients to each of the cells. So every single cell in your body is going to receive oxygen and nutrients. The second function is, as it is dropping off this oxygen, the circulatory system will also pick up and remove waste from the cells. And when we look at that waste is going to be carbon dioxide. I want to take a brief moment to go back and revisit a reaction that we briefly covered during our cell unit that occurs in the mitochondria of the cells. And that reaction is called cellular respiration. And I want to show you this because it's an important part of what happens or how oxygen and carbon dioxide work in the body. So we have oxygen and then we have nutrients. And those in cellular respiration, those two, the two things combine to form energy, which we use for our body, for movement and all the other great things that we need energy for. Energy and carbon dioxide. So we take oxygen and we take nutrients, we combine them together in the mitochondria of each and every cell of your body to form energy and carbon dioxide. So where does the oxygen come from? You guys guessed it. The lungs bring it into your body. The circulatory system brings it to each of the cells along with nutrients from your digestive system. And they combine it in the cell to produce energy and carbon dioxide. So after the oxygen is dropped off, the circulatory system is going to pick up this waste, the carbon dioxide, and it's going to transfer it out of your body. So there are four main parts to the circulatory system. Okay, four parts. The first is probably the most well-known that we think of is the heart. The second, which we covered during our respiratory unit, is the lungs, but I want to include them here because they are an important part of what happens during circulation. The third are going to be the blood vessels, and then the last but not least, let's not forget that fluid that fills the cell, that's going to be your blood. So let's look at each of these individually. So let's begin by talking about the heart. Okay, the heart is an organ. It's right here, obviously in your chest. It's an organ that's responsible for pumping blood. So it is the pump that pushes the blood throughout your body, so it pumps the blood. It's a hollow organ that's made up of four chambers. And those four chambers, they each can be identified. There is a left and a right atrium and there is a left and a right ventricle. So these are the four chambers that make up the heart. When the heart is beating, and it's just in a normal activities, it's about 60 to 100 beats per every minute. Now that can increase, especially if you're doing something like exercise, or if maybe something frightens you, your heart rate can go higher than that, especially in situations like I just mentioned. Let's go ahead and move on. I just want to briefly talk about the lungs since we have covered those already. But again, the lungs, as a review, they are what are responsible for giving the blood the oxygen, as well as taking out and removing the waste, which is the carbon dioxide. Moving on, blood vessels, and these are important because we're actually going to look at different types of blood vessels. So the first is going to be arteries. Arteries are the vessels or the tubes in the body that are going to carry oxygen-rich blood. So this is blood that has oxygen in it. So oxygen-rich blood. The second we're going to look at are going to be the veins. And if you look right here, speaking back to arteries, if you look on this diagram right here, you will notice that a lot of times the diagrams will show red and blue. They're doing that to differentiate which are arteries and which are veins. The arteries are red on the diagram. The veins are the ones that are oxygen poor. So they are the ones that are responsible for taking the carbon dioxide back to the lungs. Take CO2 from each cell to the lungs. Now, one of the things I wanted to mention is on this diagram, yes, the veins are blue. However, it is a common misconception that the blue is blood in your vein, or the blood is blue, excuse me, in your veins that are traveling back to your heart and back to your lungs. But it is actually not. All blood in your body is red. They just use that blue there to differentiate between the arteries and veins on the diagram. Okay, capillaries are the last. These are the very tiniest blood vessels that move oxygen to and carbon dioxide from each individual cell. So the capillaries are the tiniest blood vessels. And they are responsible for that actual exchange of CO2 and O2 with the cells. Okay, so very good. Keeping it rolling. I last want to talk about blood, and we're going to do a lab specifically on blood so we can talk more in detail about it. But blood is what is ultimately responsible for carrying the O2 and nutrients to the cell. Specifically, those red blood cells that are in the blood are responsible for carrying the O2 and nutrients to cell, and again, don't forget, this is a full system, so the carbon dioxide has to be returned back to the lungs. Last but not least, I just wanted to make sure that we touched on how the respiratory and circulatory systems function together in the body. So how do they work together? And again, that is so important. It's hard to really explain one without the other, but the respiratory system, again, brings in the oxygen, brings in our O2, that is then circulated throughout the body to the cells. Throughout body to cells. And vice versa. Do not forget that the cells then send the carbon dioxide back. That is the end of our video. Thank you guys for your viewing.